Hello and welcome to Nat Chat. I'm Mirella Rich. Today our guest is Dr. Augustine Doronilla, who is an environmental scientist. Welcome to the program, Dr. Augustine.
Thank you, Mirella.
It's lovely to have you here. Now, can you tell us a little bit about climate change? I've just got to read a little bit of a quote first from, I think it was Pope Benedict. He said, "If humans truly want peace, they need to live in peace and harmony with nature. Experience shows that disregard for the environment always harms human coexistence, and vice versa." That was from Pope Benedict in a letter to Eastern Orthodox Patriarch Bartholomew. So in that respect, can you kind of educate some of the viewers about climate change? Because some people really don't have any idea what all this talk is about.
Yes, okay. It's a very good question to ask because, it's very much in the public profile, and sometimes we cannot see the trees from the woods, from the forest in many ways. But, the fact that Pope Francis last year essentially said that climate change exists, he didn't say it because he's the Pope. He said it because he sought the advice of climate scientists, because, there is a whole group of scientists whose expertise is really trying to understand the weather, the atmosphere, if you like. I'm not an atmospheric scientist, but then I inform myself so that I understand what they're saying, and there is a very, very strong evidence, because remember, scientists, what we do is we try to understand what happens, what is a natural phenomena, if you like. And so most of the time, actually, what we do is to try to disprove whether this exists or not.
Yeah.
But this body of scientists have very much overwhelmingly demonstrated that there is something happening to the weather which is really creating a serious problem that is to the detriment of not only the planet but all the people in this planet. So in many ways the Pope is saying, well, from what I understand is happening, what the science is trying to tell us, we have to do something about it, because if we do not do something, that most likely in our lifetime we will see that the planet will be so uninhabitable for millions and millions of people, and also for most of the living creatures on this planet. So if you like, the simplest analogy you can say about what's happening to the planet is, because we have been using a lot of fossil fuel, we're releasing a lot of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. And so what happens is the radiation from the sun heats up this carbon dioxide, because the carbon dioxide and water vapor are very good at storing heat. So it's creating like what we know as the greenhouse effect. So another good example is, when you put your food in the microwave oven, isn't it? You expose your food to microwaves, which is a form of energy. But in the case of the sun, it's the infrared that excites the carbon dioxide molecules, and it really holds the heat. So if you like, if you compare the planet to a person, if you have a fever, that's 1 or 2 degrees above our normal body temperature, we feel a bit sick, and usually it speeds up the body process. But you feel that your body you're warm. But it's the same thing with the planet. The average temperature has gone up 1 or 2 degrees, and that heats everything up. And what happens if that temperature, the average temperature of the planet goes up by more than that, it's like someone with a fever that's more than 2 degrees, and you literally cook the body, so different processes.
So it's like we're cooking, like the planet's cooking, it's burning up.
So that's the same with the microwave oven. Obviously it's a different form of energy, but essentially you're heating everything up, so you cook that thing.
And what sort of things can we do as individuals to stop the planet heating up?
Because we understand that this heating up of the planet has been because we've been burning a lot of what we call the fossil fuels, the oil, coal, that's been locked up underneath the surface of the planet for millions of years to form this real, if you like, reserve of the carbon dioxide that's been taken out of the air and locked up there, where it's not going to, if you like, absorb the heat from the sun. And So what we're trying to do is trying to reduce that release, but and also allow the return, well, locking up that those greenhouse gases back into a form which doesn't allow this heating up process. So one good example, if you like, is eating less meat, because nowadays the world has, in one sense, become much more a global planet.
Go vegan.
So like, it's interesting. The Pope was saying that if all Catholics, for example, it's a very simple example. If we all gave up meat on the Friday every day, every Friday of the year, that would contribute in reducing the amount of carbon dioxide that goes up in the air, because a lot of what we eat as meat is because we have to clear a lot of land in order to grow soya beans to feed to the cows. And what happens, the cows, when they eat soya beans, they also contribute to greenhouse gases, because inside their stomach it's like a 100-liter tank which ferments the grass that they eat, and that releases greenhouse gases.
Wow.
And so by reducing the number of cows that are actually being farmed, you're reducing the release of a significant amount of greenhouse gases. They say that the greenhouse gases released by cows is more than the greenhouse gas released by cars on the road all around the world. So it's quite significant.
Gee.
So even the fact of eating less meat is already going to do something to reduce that further release of these greenhouse gases.
Yeah, no, because a lot of raw vegans on YouTube and everywhere are always talking about, hey, if you go raw vegan, you'll help the environment.
Yeah,
it's interesting to know the reasons how.
There's a very the mathematics of it is also the science of it is very simple, So something's got to be released.
That's beautiful. Anyway, we're about to go to a break now, but we'll continue with more and talk about as well what you're giving lectures on as well now. You're watching Nat Chat. Stay with us. We'll be back very shortly. Hello and welcome back to Nat Chat. I'm Mirella Rich. Our guest is Dr. Augustine Doronilla, who is an environmental scientist. And welcome back to the program, Dr.
Thank you, Mirella, yes.
Now, can you tell us a little bit about what you're actually lecturing in? What sort of things are you talking to your students about in the environment?
Yes, I'll take it a bit further, because over these last few years I've had the good fortune to be invited to the Philippines, a third world country, which there is also a big problem with poverty, because they have a lot of natural resources, but they are being exploited in a way that really very few people from benefit. And one of the problems is a lot of people live out in, let's say, in a mountain, or in villages all around these little islands. And it so happens that underneath their villages there might be a whole lot of gold or nickel or copper. So the people, the mining companies, have to go there. I mean, it's very simple. They have to dig a hole in the ground. It happens the people that lived, or the forest that was on top of the hole of the ground, have to be sent away, isn't it? In order to create this hole in the ground. So once they dig the hole in the ground, well, that hole's there forever. But you essentially displaced and you've disturbed that let's say mountain, and you've gotten rid of all these people. So it also creates a lot of social problems.
Well, yeah.
So what I've been doing the past few years, I've been invited to teach university students, and also, let's say, mining engineers, ecologists. What are the things that we can do in order to stop the harm that's created? Because whether you like it or not, you create a hole in the ground, and that's going to be there forever. The miners are not going to cover up that hole, but we have to understand what can we do so that you can create the ecosystem, the plants and the animals that are living in these areas, so that it's not just a barren wasteland after that. And so it's really making it possible that as part of the mining process, we don't just leave a polluting environment there, but really create something, well, another living community, and so to also allow the people to be able to benefit from what's happened over there. But, I mean, and because in the past that's what's happened. You know, people just dig up a precious metal and then really trash the place and really.
And in the bigger picture, is it really necessary to be digging up this metal and digging up this gold? Can we live without it?
Well, with a lot of things, in fact, this is very important because the Pope, in his encyclical, was really saying, well, we have to question why we actually exploit these minerals. Is it just so that we can create a lot of wealth that is also tied into, well,
more greed?
Yeah. That is it really to benefit all these people? But a lot of poverty is also tied in with the fact that people have to do without. You know, they're driven away from these places, or you know, to create technology you need very few highly skilled people. But what about the vast majority who are uneducated or do very simple work? You know, the technology should also benefit them. But at the moment, the Pope's saying, well, let's have a hard look about how we redistribute the wealth so that everyone benefits, not just, I mean, the people who live there in these places, they might not own the place, but they've lived there. But then if they get displaced, you know, all of a sudden they have, where are they going to get their food? Or, you know, if they've always lived next to a river that gets dammed, for example, you know, it's very unfair that they don't benefit from someone harnessing, let's say, the electricity from damming this river, isn't it?
Yeah.
And why should the people in the city, I mean, only a certain number of people live in cities in this world, probably half. But what about the other half that live in places where they're really so close to nature, if you like? But if we keep on pushing them away, that's a big injustice. And so the Pope's trying to say, well, let's make technology be at the service of these people too. It's not just for a select number who can amass a lot of wealth by using technology.
That's right, yeah. And what other things are you lecturing at Melbourne Uni about?
Well, to be honest, I only lecture I only do several very specific lectures. But it's for me, what I lecture is about the understanding about the transformation of elements, you know, from the environment, from the rocks, how they're converted into other, you know, how plants take up certain essential minerals, if you like, and try to understand at what point they can be good or bad, you know, what makes them toxic, for example, or what makes them just be there in the environment without causing harm. So that knowledge helps us also understand through our industrial technological processes, how to minimize that harm to living creatures and to ecosystems.
That's right. There's a movie, like a documentary, I don't know if you've ever seen it. Have you ever seen it called The Secret Life of Plants?
Yes.
Have you seen it?
Yes, I love it. Yes,
yeah, that's so beautiful, isn't it? It's
yes,
amazing.
yeah.
It just shows the world and of plants and how there is something really going on there. Like
it's quite awesome.
It's
Yes,
really, and they've got like these close-up pictures of these plants, how they. You know, some take hold of other plants, and it's like a real war going on almost amongst the plants.
That's right. You can speed up something that looks like it's just doing nothing.
Yeah.
But all living creatures move.
Yeah.
Some faster than the others, obviously.
Yeah.
But they all have to get nourishment from the world that they live in, and so you can even think like, you know, us animals, we feed on plants, but you also think about plants giving nourishment to us animals, if you like.
Yeah.
And there's this real exchange, this reciprocity in many ways in the whole processes of nature.
Yeah, and then also that they have feeling, they can feel like.
Yeah, that's right.
They're still.
Yes,
they can sense when there's some danger in the area, and they can sense when things are peaceful.
Yes. I mean, obviously. That's what you call sensations are very important, and that's what makes a living creature, because we have to sense what is harmful to us in the environment. So the senses that plants are a bit different from the senses of animals, but they're there to make us avoid these things that cause harm.
Beautiful. About to go to a break now. You're watching Nat Chat. Stay with us. We'll be back with more very shortly. Hello and welcome back to Nat Chat. I'm Mirella Rich. If you've just joined us, we're here with Dr. Augustine Doronilla, who is an environmental scientist. Welcome back to the program.
Thank you very much, Mirella.
It's lovely having you here, and it's so exciting finding all this information out. Just recently also, what I've read as well, Pope Benedict made the Vatican the first carbon neutral solar powered state in the world. And would you like me to read what he's written in his homilies, and then you can tell us a little bit about it? So in his homily in 2006, he said, "The world we live in is the work of the Creator Spirit. Christians who believe in the Creator Spirit become aware of the fact that we cannot use and abuse the world and matter merely as material for our actions and desires, that we must consider creation as a gift that has not been given to us to be destroyed, but to become God's garden, hence a garden for men and women." So isn't that wonderful? He was the first solar
certainly very, very inspiring words. Well, I think, earlier we talked about how people considered Pope Francis as the Green Pope, but what we've come to realize is this whole thinking about caring for planet, if you like, has been a recurring theme since Pope John Paul II, because they've really had a hard look at the fact that today's modern world has been one in which we've been unleashing a lot of energy, if you like. We obtain energy to fuel our modern living mainly from fossil fuels, and so Pope Francis has highlighted, well, this is also to the detriment of the health of the planet, the well-being of civilization in many ways, because of we're warming up the planet, and there's all these very negative consequences because of that. So if you look, you mentioned the fact that Pope Benedict had commissioned the building of a solar farm. So the Vatican State being the smallest sort of nation on the planet, if you like, Pope Benedict, together with a big consortium, a big solar company, constructed one on one of the Vatican lands north of Rome, and so they built a solar farm, which is quite state-of-the-art, and so it essentially generates enough electricity, which is the equivalent of a power station that could service, 200,000 people. So, if you like, enough energy to provide electricity for a city like Geelong. Which is quite amazing, that this little nation called the Vatican has invested in a solar farm. So it's very much in keeping with this vision that, we have to do our part in order to harness human intelligence, our ability to harness the forces of nature without the detriment. So, it's obviously very technologically quite a sophisticated way of generating energy from a renewable resource, which is the sun, isn't it? And the other thing is the biggest meeting hall in the Vatican itself, which is the Nervi Hall. If you look at it from the sky, it's quite impressive, because the whole roof, it's sort of as big as an IKEA, for example, is all covered with solar panels. So it generates its own electricity to sort of provide for significant needs of the electricity required to run the Vatican, if you like. So it's very much a very green nation, and like you were saying there, it really created quite a lot of public interest. The fact that this was not only an investment, but it's also a witness to show that let's use the best minds who are in technology today to do something good, so that we're not really creating more of a problem in terms of the unregulated use of fossil fuels in this case. But then it's also highlighting the fact that if we use the world's resources just to create wealth, we're really, we have serious environmental problems about pollution of many sorts. And if you take climate change out of the equation, there's still so many big problems due to heavy metal pollution, all this pesticide pollution, all the things that are useful for one thing, but then they're also, if not used properly, create a lot of harmful effects to living creatures all around in the world.
That's beautiful. I'll read another bit as well. Pope Benedict said in part 2 of his book, The Environment, Science and Technology, it is the duty of all peoples to implement policies to protect the environment in order to prevent the destruction of that natural capital whose fruits are necessary for the well-being of humanity. So I guess there's something we can all do. It's kind of like calling us all to come back to nature, to become much more natural human beings, to do more things outdoors, to eat more fruit from the trees and live off the land, isn't it? Would be a lot, would help a lot.
Yes. I think we'd all agree we're a lot happier if we're surrounded by flowers, for example.
Yeah.
We can have. We're capable of making plastic flowers, but there's nothing more beautiful than a real flower, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so to actually have a space to do. Actually, one of the things in Pope Francis's encyclical, he quotes one of the little stories that Saint Francis said that in the garden of the convents of the Franciscan friars, there should always be a space in the veggie garden where the weeds grow, because he said the weeds express the spontaneity of God's creation. Because in the vegetable garden you grow things obviously for a purpose to feed the monks, but then if you let a patch of that garden just sort of have the weeds come in, it's like it's allowing us to be surprised by God's imagination, that the variety of life can be expressed in that patch of a weedy patch, which is also beautiful.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for coming on the program. We've come to the end of the program now, and we'll hope to see you again sometime on Nat Chat.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to chat.
Beautiful. Well, you've been watching Nat Chat. I'm Mirella Rich, and our guest was Dr. Augustine Doronilla, an environmental scientist. I hope you enjoyed the program. See you again soon.